So before I start today's video, I'd just like to say I hope you're all well and that your collections are thriving. But most of all, I would hope that some of you, if not all of you, are learning something from my videos. And in return, I hope that those of you find that either my methods are not how you do it, or if you feel that they're not quite right, would give me feedback on those. And we can share our knowledge together, share our methods of doing things. So before I get started with the video, I'd like to thank you all for watching my previous videos. Thank you all for liking them, giving me a bit of feedback, and thanks to those of you in the group who've accepted me as part of the group. So I really appreciate that. So without further ado, let's get on with the video. Hello, in this video I'm going to really quickly show you how to make a DIY moss pole. What you're going to want is a stick or a plastic tube, as long as you want your pole to be. Mine, I measure from the bottom of the pot right the way up to where I want it to go. For this one I'm using an old Hoover pipe from a Hoover I no longer have. When I've drilled some holes in either end, you don't need to do that, but it'll help you out later on. You want some twine, natural twine, and you want sphagnum moss. Now you're going to want quite a bit of sphagnum moss because you're going to want to cover your pole in it. So I'll get the sphagnum moss out. Right, so to start off, what I would do, I'd put a loop of twine through the end of your hole. If you haven't got one to put it through, if you haven't made a hole, if you're just wrapping it round, what you want to do is you want to twist your twine over, and then you want to twist the twine the other way. So what you want to do, twist right over left, and then right over left again, and then put the second loop you made on the top, push it through and pull it tight. So I'm going to leave that in place anyway. And what you're going to do is you're going to do a few wraps around your pole or your pipe or your stick till you get to the other end. Till you're left with this, which is a stick covered in twine. So because I've got this hole, what I'm going to do is just push it back through itself. I need to drill this hole a little bit bigger. So I'm just going to use a screw to make the hole a bit bigger. Excuse the sound of my dog having a dinner. Get that through there. So that's through there. Tie it off so it doesn't pull back. So now you've got a pole with a wrap around it. Now what you're going to do is leave this attached at this end and start getting your sphagnum moss and just wrapping it around. And as you go, you're going to want to wrap your twine around it. So every time you add some moss, add some twine. So this is why you're going to want quite a lot of sphagnum moss, because it's going to take a lot to cover your pole. Might take a couple of wraps over each area to get the moss to stick. It doesn't really matter. It's not the easiest thing to do, but it's doable. So you're going to keep repeating this process of apply moss to one side, twine round it to hold it in place, and then keep going. Now it doesn't have to be perfect. I'll show you how you repair any bits you've missed once you've got to it. So you keep doing this for the whole pole. This sphagnum moss is a little bit compacted. Anyway, keep laying it on, wrapping it round. You will use quite a lot of twine for this. You could also use wire, but I found that the twine helps with spreading the moisture about. I use twine for a lot of different applications. And this is the first time I've used it to make a moss pole. In fact, it's the first time I've made a moss pole, so we're learning together now. If any bits fall off, don't panic. You will find as you get further down, you have to start doing it like I'm doing. Just keep wrapping it up and getting it to cling to the pole. You could do this another way. You could allow the sphagnum moss to dry a little bit and attach it then when it's dry, but what would be the point in that? Might as well do it while it's damp and you can use it straight away and you won't have to mist it for a while. So we're coming to the other end now, so we're halfway. I'm going to spin it round and I'll pull less of the moss off as we wrap it up in twine. Now we're getting there. You don't need to go right the whole length, because if, like me, you're going to stick it into a pot, you only really need it above the surface of the soil, because there's plenty of moisture in the bottom of the soil. So keep mossing and wrapping. Probably going to need to get more moss out. So I'm going to just tie that off temporarily, get more of the moss out, and then continue our journey down the pole. So I think after this wrap, that should be as far as I want to go with this, with the moss. So what I'll do, get a final few wraps, a little bit tighter than before at the bottom, and then start working our way right the way back up to the top of that pole again. Going right round. Sometimes you'll have to go back over on yourself, but going right round the whole pole. So I'll swap hands, I can do this a bit quicker. I haven't got long left on my memory card in the camera. So spin it back around nice and tight all the way up that pole till you get to the top. As you can see, that pulls in all the loose bits. There'll still be a few loose bits out, but don't worry about those. And then tie it off at the top, nice and tight as you can get it, for that matter. So I'm going to take a nice excess length, more than I need, to tie it all up nice and tight at the top. like so. Doesn't have to be any fancy knot, just the tighter the better. There you go. Tie it up nice and tight so it's not going to go anywhere. And that, once we trim this end, is your completed moss pole ready to use. Before the camera cut off, show you there's your moss pole, nice and finished. Wrap the bottom up, you can put a cable tie on, something to hold it nice and stiff at the bottom. Cut it down as long or short as you need it. I think that's as long as mine needs to be. And for the top there, what I would do, handful of sphagnum, like that. Just plug that all up at the top, like so. Make it look a bit nicer. If any falls off, you can always add more, tie some more twine round. So once again, thanks for watching. Any questions, comments, anything like that in the comments below. Any requests for a video in the comments. Feel free to share it, feel free to like it, comment it, whatever. Thanks for watching, have a nice night.